Welcome to Embrace the Suck. So I'm gonna have a guest here in a few minutes, but I wanted to hop on only because I really haven't been too vocal on my podcast because of me doing two podcasts now. Ooh, excuse me, not y'all don't want to see my feet. So I'm gonna have a guest here in a few minutes about Embrace the Suck. But right now I just wanted to kind of come on and just talk about life, talk about the duty now that I'm off of it a year later. So it's been a year now that I've been off recruiting duty, and bro, I love it. Like I wanted to stay on the duty. I wanted to become a 12. I wanted to, it's just so much stuff that I wanted to do. But then God has His own plan for you, and this was, that God's plan was for me not to stay on the Marine Corps active duty side, and here I am back as a reservist, and doing my drill thing, and being a civilian again. And bro, I tell you, man, I love it. Not to be in a civilian part, I just love the part about not having to work Saturdays and Sundays and knowing that I don't gotta work what up, radio? But knowing that I don't have to work Saturdays and Sundays. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what happens, I don't have to. And if I do, like today I did, I was sitting home, I did some stuff, and that's it. You know what I mean? It was over. But I didn't have to worry about like getting a phone call from nobody. I didn't have to worry about like, hey, what do you got for Monday? Like, it's phenomenal, man. It's a phenomenal feeling being off of recruiting duty because I don't have that like nerve wracking like never off the duty. Because and that's why I can't wait to have a 12 on to talk to him, because that's a question I haven't asked, is that like, bro, how does it feel to never be off the bag? Like, yeah, you're not a recruiter or a staff NCOIC at different times, right? But you're always on the bag. You know what I mean? Like, you're on the RS mission. You know what I mean? Or like you're the RI who's in charge of, yeah, essentially you're not on the bag, but you're still out there dealing with it every single day. You know what I mean? And it's like, and it never goes. You know what I mean? And that's why I think it's crazy, because like there's this guy that I know who just became an 8412, and he's out on leave right now. And it's like, bruh, like back in the day, that wasn't happening. You mean like when the whole entire state is not making mission, you're not going on leave. like, like they're not letting you go on leave right now. But right now, it's happening. This guy I know, I mean, not gonna say no names, but he's on leave. I mean, he's enjoying leave, and it's crazy because like when I was on recruiting duty, what is leave? You mean so? But now I guess in some places it's okay, even when your whole entire state's missing. That's what it is though. But I get it. You know what I mean? Your family needs you. I'm not saying you shouldn't get leave. I just think that there should be, some things going on. You know what I mean? Like, if you just missed mission last month, you should not really be able to go on leave. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Sorry that I'm breathing so loudly into this. This thing is insane. How good it is. It's quite crazy how great of a microphone it is, that it literally just picks everything up. My guest is finally gonna be here. So I just really wanted to hop on real quick before I got let the guest on and really just say, yes, follow my Instagram page, and thank you to the wife for being down there. She dope, she awesome. You know what I mean? My man, here he is. Let's go. Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm going good, man. I'm phenomenal. How are you?
Um, I'm all right. Better than most days right now.
So before we kick it off and everything, introduce yourself to the crowd, to the family. Who is Tommy? Let everybody know who you are. And then we'll kick it from there.
All right, so like you said, I'm Tommy. I'm a staff sergeant Pelham, I guess, and I'm over in RSS Reno right now. I'm a recruiter, and been in the Marine Corps for like 8 years. I was born and raised here in Reno, where I'm recruiting out of now, so it's a hometown type of thing. And yeah, I mean, as far as who I am, I try to be as much of a family man as I can, and got two kids, a 3-year-old daughter and 1-year-old son. Actually, my son turns one tomorrow,
Oh
so that's
wow.
pretty cool.
On Easter?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
on Easter.
snap. Okay. No doubt. Well, congrats on that, man. So how long you been on duty?
Uh, Pushing 2 years now, so it'll be 2 years in June.
Okay, so your daughter was one when you came out here.
Yeah,
Got you. Yeah, my daughter just turned one. I'm sorry, my daughter just turned two, and my daughter turned one last year on Easter. So that's crazy. And then
yeah.
my son just turned four, and then we have one due in May. So but how has that been for you, man? Like I can talk on it because I was there, but like how has that been for you, like and your wife, going through the duty while being a new parent? Like how has that been?
It's definitely been rough. I don't know necessarily if it was better or worse or easier or not to have a kid on the duty, vice come to the duty with a kid, or just have no kids. I think honestly, because that we had a daughter, we had already coming onto the duty, that it might have actually been a little bit easier to keep the marriage kind of tight, because
Mm,
now she kind of understands like the whole like be having to be gone and stuff for the Marine Corps in general. Uh, but now it's like, okay, she kind of gets it a little bit more because it's recruiting duty, and she's not just completely by herself. She still has at least something to do.
yeah,
Versus some of these guys where their wife might be at home. Like, what are they doing? Like,
yeah,
I'm sure they find something to do to maybe get a job or whatever. But a lot of guys that I've seen out here just kind of family falls apart
yeah.
because of that whole just nothing to do, and your husband's gone all the time or wife's gone all the time, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
now with the kids, I think it's been rough for sure, because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm failing almost like as a dad because I'm never around.
Mm.
But for her, I think, and for our marriage, it's kind of been a plus, sort of.
Yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying, bro. Because like, and it's crazy for me. So I'm on the other end of this, right? So when I was on recruiting duty, me and my wife started recruiting duty, and I had no children. So then we had my son, and I remember when I found out when my wife was pregnant, I told my gunny, my staff NCOIC, I said, "Hey, gunny, my wife's pregnant." He was like, "Well, when's she due?" I said, "April." He said, "During F, ma'am." Like he got mad. Yo, he chewed my ass. I was like, bro, like,
Like, you could control it.
clear. He was like, well, you should have been using contraceptives until so that it couldn't come during F, man. Like he was pissed. Like he was livid. And then the funny thing is that not only did I have a baby through F, man once, but then my daughter, when I was the staff NCOIC, now I got my wife pregnant again. Excuse me, and my daughter was due in April again. So and now I'm the staff at COIC, and I said to myself, I was like, bro, F man, really? And like I was cited myself, but and that's the thing that was crazy about it though, is that like now I'm a year off the duty, and my wife's pregnant again in FMAM, and the baby's due in May. But this time, I don't give a damn about no FMAM. It don't mean
Yeah.
nothing to me. But what's crazy though is that like when you're on the duty and you're so busy focusing on the mission, the numbers, and everything else, you don't realize what's going on at home. And that's something that like in the past couple of weeks, like I've really been like paying attention, and like I'm helping. Like now I'm home and I'm able to do yard work. I'm able to clean up around the house. I'm able to let the dog out. I'm able to, bathe, do baths with my kids and stuff. Like I'm able to help my wife now, and now I'm watching her through this pregnancy. And the other day I just looked at it, and I looked at her and I was like, bro, she did this twice without me. And it hit me in the like, look, yo, it literally, like I was driving to work on Thursday, and I was driving, and all of a sudden I thought about it, and I was like, yo, this is the first time that I've been here throughout the whole pregnancy, and she's not alone. Like this is the first time that like because she, with with my son, he was 2 when my daughter was born. So my wife had to feed him, bathe him, and do all of those things while pregnant, while she was, home alone. Like I was leaving at the house, for MEPS runs and shit, like 5 a.m. Some days leaving the house like maybe 7, but 9 times out of 10 I was out of the house by 7, not home till 10 o'clock at night. And
Right.
my son, the first 2 years of my son's life, he had no idea who the hell I was. Like, and when I say that, people don't really get it. And I'm like, no, like my son literally, he knew I was his dad. Like, I don't mean that. But like my
Right.
son literally, like I remember the one that when it hit me the most was I remember one day I was just sat, I think it was like a Monday morning, and I was leaving for work. And I said to my son, I said, see you later. Like he was on his way to go to daycare with my wife. And I was like, all right, Lucas, I'll see you later tonight. And my son looks at me and he goes, see you tomorrow, dad. And I was just like, and he was 2, bro. And I was just like, bro, the fact that my son like is already knowing this, that like I'm not gonna be here because I'm probably gonna be at work late, is like it's so ridiculous to me, right? And
Yeah.
you know, and that's the thing that I think that like number one, no one can prepare you for. But I think it's the thing that no one talks about. Like at BRC, like no one ever sits you down and is like, hey, if you're married, these are some things that you should go ahead and do because you may lose your marriage. Like this duty is going to literally test your marriage because like you said, bro, I don't know how many friends of mine left the duty divorced or left the duty with finding out that their spouse was cheating or like all this different stuff. And the thing is though is that like, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, is that like we can blame the duty all we want, but at the same time though it's like, bro, how many times could you have gone home and you chose not to? How many times could you have left the office earlier and you didn't? How many times, because I found myself doing that. You know what I mean? Like I found myself doing that. Like my boss, when I was a recruiter, when I was a sergeant, my gunny, like we would stop working at like 7:30, but then he would keep talking and talking and talking and talking. And then we would all just find ourselves just like decompressing about the day and BSing and telling stories about like, oh, this dude called me and this and this happened. Or like we would find ourselves like closing out with Chris. And it's just like, bro, but if we had done things the right way throughout the day, we could have left at 8 o'clock. Like we could have left to be home with our children and stuff. Like, so that's why, like, when people blame the duty, it's like, bro, it's not the just stop. Like, it's like, stop blaming the duty. Like, when people like on that recruiting page, like when people blame the 12, bro, half the time, like, if you really think about it, and this is what aggravates me, is like half the time, you don't even see these 12s. Like you're blaming the 12s
Yeah.
for your shitty duty, but when was the last time you even saw one in your office? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll
Like
be
realistically, how often do you see them? And so like I guess and I know I've been rambling on, but like, what is your take on that? Like, how have you, as a husband, as a man, as a recruiter? Because I know before you said that you felt like you were failing. What are some things now that you're like, you're in a different place now, like you're almost off the duty? What are some things that you would say to somebody like, hey man, these are some tips, these are some tactics that might be able to help you through your marriage while on this duty?
actually, I've been thinking about this for a long time because I have a really good friend of mine who is starting the duty right now. He's about to finish BRC like this month and head out to the East Coast. And so I was thinking about it a lot. Like, what would I tell myself a couple of years ago so I could kind of give him that advice? And a lot of it was kind of what you just said, which was like, it's no one's fault but your own type of thing. I feel like there's kind of a little bit of acceptance with it. Like, understand that you're not always going to have time. Like, you're more than likely, like, you're not going to have time for a lot of stuff. But when the things that are like actually important, like, you got to make time for it. You got to figure out a way to make time. And those small kind of things here and there where you're like, who's going to be making phone calls at like noon? Like we all should be, right? Or whatever we're doing at like noon or something, or some random part throughout the day where we're like, okay, well, we're just not really getting enough, or like we're not usually getting any kind of business during this time. 1 day a week, 2 days a week, whatever it is, if you can swing it, or maybe like once every other week, even if you're hurting or whatever. Like just see if you can like go have lunch with your wife and kids,
Hmm.
or just go pick up your kids and take them to the park so your spouse can go and like decompress a little bit
Yeah.
and just have some time to themselves. And something I did the other day is I like kind of sort of like forced my wife to take a bath. Like I ran her a bath, put like some bath salts in there, like uh put like some bubbles and everything. And I was like, get in the bath. And she's like, well, I just want to like hang out and watch TV. I was like, I don't really care what you want right now. Like you need to get in the bath because you're freaking stressed out, you
Yeah.
know? And and after it, she was like, thank you, because she was only in there for a little while, was able to kind of chill on her own while I like helped put, the kids to bed because they were kind of being crazy for that whole day. And then when she was done and I was done with the kids and everything, then she was able to come out and we were able to like watch an episode or two or whatever of our show that we were watching.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just I guess the advice I would give as far as that's concerned is like you understand that you're not failing, right? Like as a father, like I was kind of mentioning earlier, even though that may be the way that it feels, uh, it's almost like necessary, like a means to an end. You're on the duty now, like there's nothing you can do about it. Do what you can to get off it,
Yeah.
and
And
not
that's the
like mess it
thing,
up.
man, is like I like that mentality that you're having. Is like, bro, and this is what like I was talking to my master the other day about it, and he was like, bro, I'm about to get off this page because he's a 12, and he's on that page, and he was like, bro, I'm about to get off this page, and I was just like, bro, I don't know why you haven't gotten off. Like I'm on it. Honestly, the reason why I'm on it is because it helps me keep topics for my podcast. If
Yeah,
if it wasn't for that, I literally wouldn't be on it because like I in my mind, I may be wrong, but in my mind, I think that 99.9% of the people that are on that page are the substandard recruiters that are causing us to hate recruiting duty. Because like as much as I had 12s that I didn't like, I never spent all day every day complaining about 12s on Facebook. Like
yeah,
it's just like, bro, first of all, have I met my share of disgusting 84 12s that I think should never have become 12s? 100%. And but the thing is though, and what I personally can't stand about it though, is that that's every single MOS in the Marine Corps. That is every job in the world. It's not like people make it seem like there's not, 0331s that shouldn't be 0331s. Like it's not, people don't like, we know that there's sergeant majors that shouldn't be sergeant majors. We know that there's gunnies that should, it's everywhere. It's not just the Marine Corps. It's not just recruiting duty. It's not just, and that's why it's like these people that complain about recruiting duty and blame it on the 8412. It's like, bro, if you really think about it, like I said before, like how often do you even see the 12? Like just shut up and do your job, and that's it. And that's why I like them. And like you said, like, and then but here's the thing though, is like about what you were saying, which I agree with, is you were saying, okay, well, you know what? You know your day. Take some time out to go to lunch, to go to dinner, or and carve out a piece of your day, right? Here's the thing though. If that's the advice that we give people, we need to do it. Because the problem is that when I got on the duty, that's what everybody told me. My sergeant major, my master guns, my CO, hey, listen, man, put in your SNR an hour a day for your wife and make it happen. And then guess what? I never put it in. I never actually did it. And it wasn't my CO's fault. It wasn't my master gun's fault. It was no one else's fault because if I was ever out with my wife and someone called, they never were like, "Hey, why are you out?" They told me that I could. So it's like the thing is that it's not that it's the command's fault. It's that Marines just aren't doing it. Marines aren't putting that time out in their day to actually make it a point to go to dinner, or even like, like something that I used to do was like I would ask my wife, like, I'm out ACing all day long. Do you need me to go grocery shopping? Is there anything that you need me to pick up? Because hey, it's easier for me to go into a store and actually be a customer and just do my normal, do my area canvassing while I'm shopping than it is for me just to go into a store for no reason. So now
Just
I have a
wandering
legitimate
around.
reason to be here. I'm a customer. So like, the biggest thing for that way, and the reason why I bring that up is because people just they say, "Hey, you can do this," but they don't do it. My boy Radio said staff and COICs need to do a better job at making sure their Marines are getting that time. Better family life means better work. And you know what? That's true. That's a very good point because when I was a staff in COIC, like I had this Marine, Staff Sergeant Durkee, literally still my best friend. Like we're off duty now a year later, and I talk to him probably every single day. Like he calls me like literally every day or every other day. Either he calls me or I call him, and we still go back and forth. He was one of my very first. He was actually my first recruiting episode, but me and him talk all the time, and he literally at this point he's off the duty, and he called me yesterday, and he was like, he said to me, he goes, Bennett. I was like, what's up, Ray? He goes, I never thought I'd say this, and I was like, what? He goes, I fucking miss it, and I was like, miss what? And he was like, recruiting duty, bro. I was like, what? I was like, Ray, you miss recruiting duty? And he was like, so he tells me the story. He's like, bro, so my boy came over to my house and he left his ID at my house. So he needed me to bring it over to him. And right now he's on recruiting duty out here in South Carolina. So my boy's stationed in Beaufort. So he's like, yeah, he's local to the recruiting station. So he's local to my house. So I went over to the recruiting station. I walked in and I heard my boy making a TC, and I almost threw up. And he goes, and I remember all the times that you chewed my ass while I was making TCs and I couldn't get an appointment for tomorrow. Like, bro, I used to stand there at, like, I don't know if they have them in your RS, but do they have those blue boards that like are bulletproof to ballistics?
Yeah, the
So
partitions or whatever.
I used to put my arms above it, and I would just stare at him I was his A gunner, and I would just stare at him while he was making TCs, and he was horrible, like the one of the worst people I've ever seen make TCs, bro. And I would just watch him, and as he was doing it, I'd be like, yo, and I would coach him through the TC, and I would have like a board, and I'd be like, say this, say this, say this, and he wouldn't say it, and he's looking at the board, and I'm like, bro, you're looking at the board that I'm writing, like I'm telling you the next question to ask, like I'm sitting here annotating this for you, and he just wouldn't listen. So then finally, I just started yell. He hung up the phone, and I started screaming at him. I bugged out. I was like, bro, and I sat there and I was like, bro, you said this, he said this, he said you said you blah, blah, blah. And I'm just flipping out. And then my gunny comes out of the room, and he starts screaming. And so now the reason why I bring this up is because he was the trashiest of trash at TCs. And then finally, his like halfway through, he became like stellar. He became really good at TC. So now he's calling me and he's like, bro, I just saw me 3 years ago and I understand why you screamed at me and why you wanted to bash my head in through the wall. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he reminded me, and I was like, bro, because man, like you're not listening. Like that's the thing about it, bro. How many times have you seen a Marine make phone calls and like the person will say the hook? Like the person will give you everything you need, and you'll just skim over it, and you're still digging, and it's like, bro, you dug already and you found it. It's like a dog, like you found the bone but you just kept digging even though you already found it. Like you pulled it out and it went behind you, and like you're still looking for it, and like it's still like you were so busy looking that you didn't realize you pulled it out. And that was this guy, my boy Ray. So he tells me this story and he's like, bro, I miss it. He was like, bro, I love my job. I love being a staff sergeant, back in the fleet. He was like, but I don't have the same feeling that I had on a mission letter having to go out there and change people's lives. He was like, I never in my life thought that like I would miss it, But he was like, bro, the purpose that we held on recruiting duty is such a higher purpose. And every day, he's like, every single day, you have this purpose to go to recruiting duty. And then all of a sudden, you're back in the Fleet Marine Corps. And like, yeah, you're a staff NCO, you have this purpose, but it just feels different. He's like, it just feels so different, especially because you've been gone from your MOS for 3 years. Things have changed so much. You know new now you have to do new things, and he's crash fire. So like a lot of times he's just like, it's like, they have, on and off, rotations and stuff. So he's like, I work three, I work on three, work off three, work on three, work off three. And he's like, sometimes I just look back at recruiting duty and I'm like, bro, and he was like, I also just miss our times. Like, and that's what I miss the most. Like, I don't, and this is what people say when they get out of the Marine Corps. They're like, bro, I don't miss the circus. I miss the clowns. Bro, I miss being in an office of 5 Marines every single day. Like, I miss just being surrounded by Marines, sergeant staff, sergeant scuddies, and just BSing with one another, and then having the poolies come in and out. Like, it's just, I just miss it, man. But, back to what I was saying, I don't know how I got on that tangent, but, you know, with my boy Ray, like oh yeah, that's what it was. So when I became his staff NCOIC, right, he would write 2, 4, 5 and still be at work, and I would be like, Ray, go home. Nothing changes in my MOS. We are still the most unappreciated Marines ever. Oh my god. Radio, what,
Yes.
I'm assuming I think he's calm, or he was calm. But that was the thing though, with my boy Ray, is that no matter how hard he worked, I would tell him, "Hey, go the home." And then he would leave the office, and I was resulted to call his wife. And I would call his wife and be like, "Hey, Nicole, where's Ray?" And she'd be like, "What do you mean?" I'd be like, "Is he home?" And she'd say, "No." I said, "Well, I sent him home 2 hours ago." And you know where he was? Out ACing. Like, he was literally out ACing, bro. And I'm like, and I would literally have to, bro, I literally would have to get to the point where I would send him home. And on Friday, when he left the office, I would take his Gov keys, and his Gov phone, and his laptop. And I would literally have him go home with nothing besides his phone, because I had to literally tell him, bro, you wrote me 4 contracts this month. You wrote me 2 contracts this month. You've gone above and beyond. I need you to go be with your family. And that's the thing, is that like there's Marines like that, and then there's substandard Marines that don't give a damn. And that's a huge part about why this duty sucks, is it's not about the 12s, it's not about the command group. Like, if you took the command members off the duty and there was no you did everyone would still complain. They'd be like, "Oh, it's my boss." Like, but he ain't 12 no more.
Yeah.
It's all 11s. They would still blame somebody else. So
Hmm.
I've ran my suck a lot, which is also why it's called Embrace the Suck, because you're gonna embrace me, listen me, just going on rants. But hey, so what are your thoughts, man? Like, being on the duty as long as you have been, what are some of the stressors that you've had, some of the anxieties, stuff like that, and how do you deal with the day to day? And I know that you were a recruiter. You are all so you were a recruiter and the staff in COSC.
No, no, I'm just a recruiter.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
the A slash right now. So like my
okay,
boss was gone for a couple weeks. I was out
got
there,
you.
yeah, kind of
So how
doing
did
what I
that
could.
feel, being in the staff and COIC seat as a recruiter while he was away?
Not super great. It was a lot, right? Like, cause I definitely, as a recruiter, just a regular like old canvassing recruiter, you really don't see like what the boss has to deal with that much. Um, Especially if your boss is one of those dudes that's able to kind of like hide it a lot. And for the first couple years that I've been out here, my old boss, he was able to kind of hide that stuff. I won't get into that because I could talk all day about him.
Yeah.
But he uh, he was really good at like not showing us, what it is. And so when I actually kind of filled the seat a little bit, so that my current boss and me now, like our last about couple month or last month or two, give or take, has mostly just been kind of putting out fires, right? That were, set and let to burn, by the previous guy, which, sometimes that happens. And so between, putting out fires on top of the regular stuff, right? That bosses do have to go through and deal with all the time, it was definitely a struggle. It was significantly more stressful, being, a boss for 2 weeks while being a canvassing recruiter. I didn't even remotely get close to hitting like any kind of prospecting objectives. Like I think I had like one interview, I think maybe, or two in those 2 weeks that he was gone, just simply because of the fact that like I didn't have freaking time, to like even make phone calls or like go to a school, like the normal things that we need to do, as
Yeah.
recruiters. Didn't have the time for it. And so it's like, okay, a lot of these guys, and like you mentioned with the 12s, right? It's like a lot of these guys are like, well, why doesn't my boss like go in and like help me prospect? If he's so worried about me prospecting, why doesn't he pick up the phone? Why doesn't he come and like AC, with us, or whatever? And it's like, well, dude, like didn't have the time, unfortunately. That is part of his job, right? Is to like if you go to a school, like he's supposed to go with you to a school, once a month or whatever, at a minimum, and that's doable. But like every single day, it's not gonna happen.
No.
And that's where that kind of mindset goes, like you said, is like it's always someone else's fault, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you find those Marines, as Lance Corporals and as freaking, Mass Sergeants, Master Guns, Sergeants Major, First Sergeants. It's like it's always someone else. And something that I learned pretty like solidly in my last command was the whole absolute responsibility, ultimate responsibility, like falls on the leader.
Yeah.
And whomever that leader is, like they're in charge, they are the ones who are responsible. And so that absolute responsibility of, 2, 3, 4, 5 canvassing recruiters making their individual mission falling on the shoulders of one guy or gal, like that's a lot of stress and it ain't easy. And so those 2 weeks were definitely intense.
Yeah. That's
I'd say
awesome
that
though. So like did it give you, did it give you a new appreciation for the that like for your staff in COIC? Like did it make you look at it differently?
it did. Yeah, it did absolutely. It made me look at one of our previous recruiters differently as well. Because like I said, our boss before this, and I kind of got a little bit of the peek behind the curtain, right? As the A slash is like I said, he had a lot of fires that just kept burning, like kind of stuff that he just neglected the pool program, neglected like everything for shipping and like all this kind of stuff, like a whole ton of stuff that definitely needed to be done, right?
Yeah.
Um, and we had our one recruiter who he actually, I don't know how this guy did it. Is insane because he was still writing like threes, fours, fives. He wrote an 8 and was basically the boss and a recruiter at the same time. Like this dude went on, he got meritoriously promoted twice on the duty.
Wow.
Yeah, he was the recruiter of the nation for all of FY 21,
Oh wow.
and all that time, basically since about like June, July, August timeframe of 2020, he had been the boss as well as a canvassing recruiter because and this is I think part of the reason why guys don't like 12 so much too is because the boss that we got was a 12. And like when I say that he was, in the office for maybe 12 hours a week, that's generous. And not everybody's gonna be like that. Not all 12s are like that. I have mad respect for a lot of the 12s that we have. But that one guy definitely like put a bad taste in all of our mouths
No,
and
and
just
that's the thing, man, is that like I've had them. I had this guy, I had this gunny, he's about to retire. And bro, when I took over the office, right? So I left my where I started in RSS Monmouth, right? And I left there and I went to become a staff NCOIC when they made me a staff NCOIC. They said, hey, we're gonna send you 2 hours away. I don't know why, but they were like, hey, this RSS makes 12s. And I was like, okay. So I went all the way out there and I killed it. I was 115% for shipping and contracting for 7 months. And then my where I came from started to plummet. They went from number 2 in the state to number 14 in the state. So they went from number 2 to dead last when I left. And it was an 84-12 who took over. So I went to my command and I was like, hey, I want to take it over and I will bring us back. And they were like, oh, it's a 1-5. You can't do it. You're not allowed to. You're a brand new staff NCO. We can't let that happen. And I looked at my CO and my RI at the time, and I was like, okay, well, right now you have an 84-12 who's failing and missing for 7 months straight. So I don't really think you have a better option here. You have the guy who was successful already there. You know that I'm from there, born and raised. So, like, why would you not send me here at this point? It doesn't rank means nothing. Like, do you want to make mission or not? So they sent me out there. And like when I had started talking to these, now mind you, in the time of me being gone, I was still friends with Ray and this other Marine. So all my Marines that I was their A gunner were still there. So they would call, bro. My boy's wife would call me at 3 a.m. Ray's wife would call me at 3 a.m. in the morning when I was in the other office, and she'd be like, "Bennett, can you get my husband home?" And she'd be like, "Listen, I know you're not his boss, and I know you're not in his office, but like, it's 3 a.m. and they're still not home. Like, can you call somebody?" So then I didn't do anything because I was like, it's not my place, right? But then at the same time, in my mind, as a staff NCO, it is my place because I'm a staff NCO, and it's just not right what's going on. So I started, just nudging people and letting them know, like, hey, maybe you guys should take a look at what's going on over there, right? This is before I moved over there. And finally I get calls all the time for these Marines. So finally I get over there and I start asking them like, was he really that, now that this 12 is fired and he's kicked out of New Jersey, he's kicked somewhere else. I'm like, was he really that bad? And they were like, bro, he would have us out at the office. Like he would have us in the office at 7 a.m. at 5 a.m. in the morning. And he would have us out ACing like random like breakfast spots and stuff. And he would be either not at the office sleeping or he'd be home. Or if he was out with us, he would end up leaving early. So a lot of times he was just nowhere to be found. And he was just making these decisions over the phone. And I looked at them and I was like, listen, I'm not sitting here saying like to cause a riot or a ruckus, but like, bro, if someone's giving you an order and they're not there to be with you during that order, like that's kind of freaking hazing. Like that's kind of like at this point, like and the thing is that like we talk about health and safety of our Marines, but we're not mandating like, and this is where I would get petty and I would tell my Marines like, listen, if someone's gonna tell you that you need to be all hours of the night ACing, well then you tell them, well, I can't operate a government vehicle without 8 hours of sleep. So no. Like that's when you like, and that's the thing is that like it's not about being disrespectful. It's also just about like, bro, this what you're doing isn't making it better. Like we're not making mission, bro. Like we're working from 5 a.m. until 12 o'clock at night, and we're not even writing 2 a month. So clearly, this working harder isn't making any sense. Like us, you know what I mean? And and again, that's where these 12s get this horrible you people get this horrible taste. Like, oh, this guy's a piece of shit. And but the thing is, though, is that like you clearly this group chat, everyone has a group chat, right? So these Marines are in a group chat somewhere complaining about their staff and COSCs because that's what everybody does. Everybody does it. It's a known thing here, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
everyone's complaining about this gunny or this RI or this ARI or something, right? And nothing's being done. And then it's like, and then when this guy gets fired, someone's like, okay, well, hey, did you know about it? And they're like, oh yeah, we've known. And it's like, oh, so we just thought it made sense to just let it keep happening. Like my boy crashed his gov because he fell asleep at the wheel. Literally was stopped at a red light and he had his foot on the brake and he fell asleep at the wheel. Like I've seen the video, and he falls asleep at the wheel and he fell asleep for like literally fell asleep for like 5 minutes. And then all of a sudden he wakes up to crashing into the back of this vehicle in front of him. And in the video, you see the whole thing in the video. And and then they tried to freaking get him in trouble. And he's like, bro, what do you mean I'm sleep deprived? Like, I've been up all day. I've been at my office all day. I've been doing all this stuff because people don't give a shit until something happens.
Yeah.
And and the craziest part about it is that, like, are there bad 12s? Yes. But there's so many great 12s that I've had the pleasure of meeting that are people that just literally became 12s because they cared, because of this, because of that. And they're guys that'll come to your office or take, bro. I have a mass art, man. Shout out to mass art Rory. He was my BRC instructor, bro. Well, he was a BRC instructor at BRC. I haven't seen this man in 5 years. He would take my phone calls at 2 a.m. in the morning just because I was like, bro, I swear to God, 2 a.m. in the morning, I'm having an anxiety attack, a panic attack, and I'm calling this dude and I'm like, hey, Master, I just got to talk to somebody. And he's like, hey, what's going on, Ben? What's up? And still to this day, 5 years later, if I just need a mentor, a person just to speak to, he literally will answer the phone no matter what. And now he'll call me, just say, hey, how are you? How's everything? And that's why when people say, oh, 12's this, 12's that, I'm like, bro, it's not every 12. It's not. Like, you unfortunately had a shitty 12. But that's the problem that I have, is that, like, the reason why people become shitty 12s is because they're allowed to become shitty 12s, because no one stopped it when it started. Like, when the guy became a 12 and so slowly stopped showing up to work, no one stopped him and said, hey, man, you can't do that. They're his Marines, those 5 Marines in that office, let him do it. You created this dude. Like, when he showed up every day in no uniform but made you get in uniform, and you didn't say anything about it, you created him. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
what's your
exactly.
experience? Have you had good 8412s? Like, have you been able to, have you been mentored by one, trained by one? Like, what's your experience on that end?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I kind of like breezed over it earlier, but yeah, I mean, he's one example, right? Like the guy that we had, he just happened to be like my staff NCOIC, which that sucks. Oh well. But he's gone now, which is great, and he's gone because of one of those 12s that you just mentioned. Is like he's a good dude. He's awesome. I mean, he's a he's master guns on my RS right now, and he came in here and just started changing everything. Right. Like he kind of like got his bearings, like got to see like, okay, how's the RS been running? Like what have we been doing? And then he's like, this whole everything is bass backward. We need to fix it. And so like he started noticing guys like my old boss, like, nope, this guy he ain't it. And they pulled him, he's gonna be the ops chief now because obviously he needs supervision, and so boom, Master Gun's gonna be on that, being able to watch him, keep an eye on him, started moving other guys around, started like he fired bosses like left and right, like 11s, and put them back on production, and brought another 11 up to be to be the boss and all that kind of stuff. And so he's great, and he is kind of taking this status quo, I guess, from what I have had on recruiting duty up to this point, and just flipping it on its head, which
That's awesome.
is what the all the 11s are always saying that we need to do, right? Like all these guys that, like you said, are on the page, like just complaining about this or that or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
He's kind of, it's almost like he's on the page. He might be actually, and like reading it, like, okay, well, what should I do next, type of thing. But
Yeah, because that's the
he's
thing, bro, is that there's so many people that have this idea, like, especially people who've been dead gone, like they've been off the duty for 10 years and they're still complaining about it. Like, that's what I would love. Well, all right, if you make a message on, if you make a status on the page and you're complaining about the duty, you need to still be on the duty to complain about the duty. Because if you're just causing a complaint from like 10 years ago, like, bro, why haven't you gotten over this yet? Like, but my thing is that, like, I'm glad that you brought that up, is because everybody's complaining about the duty, but the question is, what are you doing to make it better? Like
exactly.
instead of being on here to rant, and I get it, I get the stress part, I get, hey, it feels good to vent, but all that's happening on the page is venting, and all that's happening on the page is bitch, moan, and gripes. Okay, so what are you doing though to make the duty a better place?
Exactly. And
That's
so
the
like
question.
even these dudes, like if they wanted to, guys like that were on the duty, like you said, like 10, 12, 15 years ago, sometimes, if they want to complain about something that they had to deal with going through the duty, like, dude, I'm all about it. Like, do it. But also, like, tell us what you did to fix it. Like,
Exactly.
what did you
Exactly.
do?
Yeah.
And that's just something that I think is a part of recruiting duty that Marines kind of get away from. Is like, I think guys come out here and it's less of like a Marine on recruiting duty, and like you kind of take a pause on the Marine Corps. You're just a recruiter, and then you
Bro,
go
and
back, and it's
yeah,
like,
and that's the thing though, is it perfect. I love that you said that, man, is because at the end of the day, right? What are we called to do, right? And no matter what, right? And when we're in boot camp, right? What do they tell us? Hey, there's no such thing as a like oh, fuck, I'm forgetting it, but it's like a safety violator, right? Safety has no rank. So a PFC can call halt. A PFC can say ceasefire, right? So it's the same thing when it comes to things that are happening in an RSS that should not be happening in an RSS.
yep,
There's no reason why you can't look, especially when there's a like when I used to see things like I had this recently I had these Marines hitting me up and they were like, "Hey man, like all this stuff's going on in my RSS and the gunny is doing this and the third and he's not doing anything and he's having us all be at work at this time but he's not showing up till this time and he's having us all in uniform but he's not showing up in uniform or he won't put his uniform on." And then I looked at them and I was like, listen, okay, here's my first thing. Is there a staff NCO in the office? Yes. Okay, motherfucker, what are we talking about? Hey, staff sergeant, go to that gunny or that staff sergeant and say, hey, motherfucker, what are you doing? It's that simple, bro. Hold the motherfucker accountable. Just because he got a gold tag does not change the fact that he cannot be held accountable. Because that's my thing, bro. Is if and I had this, this happened to me, right? So I was a staff in COIC, and the rule I had in place was, hey, by 9 o'clock, morning in briefs, we're at 9 o'clock. You will be changed over in a uniform, right? So what? So a couple of days, I don't know what happened, but like I just got lazy and I wasn't changing over until like 10. And my A gunner, which is one of my best friends who I still talk to, Mo, comes in my office. He's like, "Hey, stats aren't." I was like, "What's up, bro?" He was like, "Can I talk to you?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." He closes my door and he goes, "Hey, why the fuck are you not in uniform?" And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Stats aren't. It is 10 o'clock and you're not in uniform. The Marines have been in uniform for an hour. Why are you not in uniform?" And I was like, "You know what, bro? You're right." Put my uniform on, went back into my office, and I apologized to all my Marines. And I was like, "Hey, it won't happen again." And guess what? I had an A gunner who held me accountable. If I showed up late, my Marine would literally, now mind you, I'm not saying like if I had things going on, like he's not calling me like, "Hey, Stats, where are you?" I'm not saying that. But if I'm not holding the standard, then he was holding me accountable. Like, "Hey, Stats, you told us to do this, but you're not doing it." And like, and that's the thing is that like when these we have people who become gunnies or who become recruiters, I mean staff and COICs, and all of a sudden this we get this head and we're like, "Oh, I don't gotta do that no more. Oh, I don't have to do that no more." And that's the thing is that you still have to do it's brilliance in the basics. And the thing is that there's no issue with you holding that staff and COIC accountable because guess what? Guess what? When the CEO, if that Marine knew that tomorrow, 8 a.m., the CEO was showing up, guess what? He would be in uniform.
yep,
He would be, right?
mm-hmm,
Okay. So then why are we not holding him accountable as if the CEO can walk in at any minute? If he's telling you you can't go to the gym, if he's telling you that he can't do this, hold him accountable. That's it. Like, hey,
yeah,
hey, Gunny. And again, I'm not saying be disrespectful. I'm not saying any of those things. But at the end of the day, the reason why there is a place where there are bad 8412s is because nobody's holding these Marines accountable as they're becoming 8412s. And there's 8412s that are being created that should have never been. Because the thing is that, and in the command's defense, the command didn't see them 365. The commanders,
Yeah.
hey, bro, of course that staff NCOIC always, look perfect when I see him. I don't know what he's doing behind closed doors. I have no idea. He's making mission though. He got a nice APR. His office doesn't miss shipping. His office doesn't miss contracting. He's good, right? But I don't know what's going on. I don't know that he's never in the office because no one tells me this, right? And that's the thing is that we have this thing called allegiance. We have this thing called, loyalty. And it's like, bro, I get it. I get it. I want you to be loyal, bro. But at the end of the day, if you are making my life a living hell and you're not even in the office, like, bro, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing about it, man, is that like, it's like, bro, hold people accountable. Accountability doesn't have a rank, bro. Hold people accountable.
And that's, yeah. I mean, then that's some of the advice that I'd give to like some of these young guys coming on too. Like, if you do have somebody who's like not doing what they're supposed to do, like it doesn't matter like what their billet is, because a lot of times like it'll be a staff sergeant running an office with full of staff sergeants, right? Or like it'll be a sergeant running an office full of staff NTOs, and it's like, okay, well, you still got to like do what you're supposed to do, right? Like you said. So, um, and that's something that like I didn't do as much as I should have, right?
Yeah.
And when it got to the point where we were trying to hold this guy accountable more and more, like he'd been on the duty at this point for 17 years,
Yeah.
and he'd been doing that thing. It's like, okay, well, what do we do now? And that brings me kind of like to my second point of this is that that was actually some advice that I gave to my CO because he asked me about it. Because like you mentioned, like he's always good when we're there. He's always in uniform. He's always like talking to you guys. He's always doing what he's supposed to do when we're there. Um, so what are you talking about? And it's like, okay, well, take a look at McChris, like take a look at everything, like take a look at the training file, see like what hasn't been done, right? Talk to the Marines, listen to how they do things. Like they know, you can tell they haven't been trained, right? But at the same time, I told them to make surprise visit, like legitimately a
Mm-hmm.
surprise visit. Like don't be like, hey, 2 hours before you get there, like, hey, like I'm gonna make a
Yeah.
surprise visit in 2 hours. No, like
Yeah.
show up and like completely unannounced, which is kind of a dick move, right? For a lot of people, the
But
way
it's
they would kind of
not
see
though.
it.
It's not though. Like
Exactly.
I did that. Bro. I called my RI. My RI told me I knew my RI since I was a lance corporal, and now I was a sergeant, right? And so I knew him forever, and me and him were close friends. And he always told me like, "Hey, if you ever need anything, call me." And clearly, I don't. As a Marine, I don't take that. Like I'm not like, "Yo, Massar, what's good?" Like I know, like unless there's something really going on, I'm gonna call him, right? So I remember I had this issue with my gunny, who was the staff NCOIC. He was 8412, and he would show up at 11 o'clock in the morning. He would spend days out at the manicure spot, pedicure spot, getting his dog cleaned. Like this dude was never at the office. And if he was at the office, he was never in uniform. But we had to be in uniform. And if he walked in and we weren't in uniform, he would go crazy. And we would all get our asses handed to us, right? And so I had enough of it. It was like months going on, and now I was the A gunner. And now mind you, I would never go to a command member if I hadn't already gone to the staff at CO.
Right.
So I was the A gunner. I took a fellow sergeant with me into his office. We closed the door and I said, "Hey, Gunny," I said, "You're not showing up to work. We're all out here busting our asses. You're nowhere to be found. We're making mission, and you're nowhere to be found. Like we're making your mission letter," is what I told him. And I was like, "But you're never here." And I was like, "And when you're here, you're not in uniform." And his answer to us was, "I don't have to answer to you. I'm a gunny. Good to go." So
Yeah.
I let it rock. Now I did my job as a man, as a sergeant. I did my job. I came to you. You didn't want to change it. All these Marines feel this type of way. Word, got you. So I called the RI, and well, I had already had conversations with the ARI, right? And the ARI had conversations with them, but nothing happened. Nothing changed. So I called the RI, and I'm like, "Hey, listen, Mass Gunny so and so is doing this, this, and the third." He goes, all right, word. He goes, what do you want me to do? I said, tomorrow morning, just show up. He goes, just show up. And he was like, all right, word. So he just shows up, and I never forget this shit, bro. Standing in the front, it's like 9 o'clock. Standing in the front of the office, and we have these big tall windows, and the gov just starts slowly pulling up, and I just go, "Yo, Gunny, I think that's Massart." What? And the funny part was is that he would, and I would ask him that. I'd be like, "Yo, Gunny, what happens if the RI?" He goes, "I don't give a damn. This is my office. I don't care. I'm in civics because it's my office." I go, "Oh, okay." So he literally starts pulling up. I'm like, "Yo, Gunny, I see that. I think that's one of our govs. I think that's gotta be Master, the CO." And he's like, I mind you, I shouldn't have even said that I saw the vehicle. I should have just left it alone, but I didn't. I was like, "Hey, because if I didn't do that, he would have knew I called him." So I was just like, "Yo, I
Right.
think Master just pulled up, bro." He books it to the back. He starts changing over fast as lightning, bro, like Superman, bro. He comes running out of the office, and as he's running out of the office, Master standing in the front, and he just looks at him and he goes, "Oh, so you just changed over because you saw me drive pull in?" And bro, literally took him in the office. He told all of us Marines to leave the office. He said, "Hey, everybody go out ACing right now." And we said, "I'm SR." And ever since that day, that dude wore his uniform every single day. Never had a problem again, nothing. And it was because that mass sergeant decided that, you know what? Before I go out to any office, I'm gonna just swing by. Like once every 2, 3 weeks, he would just randomly swing by. And then at some point he was like, you know what? When you have morning meetings, come in the office and Skype me. And it was like, and now mind you, there's Marines out there who are going to be like, wow, bro, wow, you were really loyal to your staff in COIC. Bro, listen to me. I don't care about loyalty,
Spoken.
bro. There is a reason why there's issues among recruiting duty, and it's because people are not holding other people accountable. People are
Yeah.
not literally like, you'll get your ass chewed for not being in uniform, but that dude hasn't worn it, doesn't even know where his shirt's at. He hasn't even seen his deltas in a year. And it's like, and it's just, it's the conversation of do as I say, not as I do. And it's like that's why you have a lot of issues. And now mind you, I'm not talking about just the uniform, that's that, but there's a lot further. If that uniform is the least of your problems, bro, let it happen. I don't even care. But but that's just, it starts there, bro. Is it starts there.
With the small stuff.
But so as we end this, because we've been going for an hour already, but as we kind of cap this up, man, like what has recruiting duty done for you at this point? Like, has it helped you? Has it changed you? Good, bad, ugly? Like, what are your thoughts on it? Like, are you gonna look back at it and be like, "Wow, it really helped me. It changed me as a husband, a man, a father." Like, what are your thoughts on that?
As I've kind of come closer, like getting closer to the end of it, I've kind of thought about some of that stuff as well. Is like there's definitely some things that I'm going to take from the duty that are good, and that's not something that you hear a lot, right, from guys. They're not willing to admit it, or they're not willing to talk about it like while they're on the duty or whatever, for some reason, right? Like they just feel some type of way about it. But I think that the things that I've learned out here is kind of what you mentioned, is like there's going to be bad bosses everywhere. It doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter what you're
bro.
doing. It
Even
doesn't
in the
matter if you're in the Marine
civilian
Corps
world,
or
bro,
not.
I can't.
Yeah.
Bro, I can't stand my. I love my director as a person. So my director is the equivalent of a staff in COSC. I love her as a person. I really do. As a person, I love her. As if she was my staff in COIC, no. Like, bro, no training is conducted. Nothing is done. And then when you do bad, she's like, "Oh, well, you've received the training." I'm like, "What training?" Like, because I would love to see it, bro. Like, I've been here a
Right.
year. I would love to see the training we're talking about because I haven't seen it. But yeah, you're right. Like, horrible. Like like one of the worst staff and CLCs I've ever seen. But hey, it's all right. But that's the thing, bro. It's not just recruiting duty, bro. It's everywhere.
Exactly. And then it's also kind of, I think, made me a little bit more resilient. I feel like I was kind of rigid, before coming out here. I was not to say that I'm like going to go back to the fleet and be like more lax than I was, but to the point where it's like, okay, something is falling through, like whatever things that might have been like extreme stressors or even just mild stressors, in the fleet before are going to be like, all right, yeah, whatever, let's just handle it.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
was
100%.
is something that like can't really take for granted. I mean, a lot of these guys
Bro,
talk about boot
nothing
camp, right?
nothing compares. Sorry to interrupt you, but nothing
You're good.
compares to a UA MEPS kid. Like no, once you've dealt with a kid going UA on MEPS day, like ship day, nothing. I'm good, bro. Anything in the world can happen to me. I'm good. Like as
Yeah,
long as that I never have to relive that. Like I'm, bro. Nothing can top this. Like now at my job as a civilian, things happen and my boss and my peers are like, dude, how are you not affected by this? I'm like, because you don't understand the
yeah.
hectic life that I lived for 4 years. Like, bro, as long as like I don't have a missing shipper, I'm good. Like my life is in amazing hands.
I think the craziest thing that happened, like as far as like stress, and luckily enough, for me, I guess it wasn't my kid. It was the guy that like I was talking about. He's like he's a centurion. He was the meritorious promoted twice. Like I
Wow.
was kind of
Bro, I gotta get him
craziness,
on my
and
podcast, bro.
I'll ask him. I mean, I've got his
Yo,
phone and
link
everything.
me
He,
up
I
with
don't
him.
know if he, I will, because I'm sure that he'd be more open to talking about it more now that he's off the duty. But he had this kid go down to San Diego, and everything was great. Everything was good. Went through MEPS like no problem. Got on the plane, went down to San Diego. Get a call from the depot. Hey, where's your kid at?
Oh my god.
Like went through all of it. Gets down to the depot, and this is when there was quarantines, right? Where you had the restriction of movement. You get down there and you have to quarantine for the 2 weeks for
Yeah, yeah,
COVID.
yeah, yeah.
He shows up to the hotel, accounted for, everything's good, and leaves the hotel and is not seen. Like nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows where he's at. Doesn't have his cell phone, right? Because it's boot camp, and like there's just nothing. He left in PT gear and green on green. I don't know how he got anywhere, but he left in green on green. Somehow, like found clothes somewhere. Maybe I don't know. They ended up scooping him up somewhere. Like he called his dad or whatever from like a payphone. They scooped him up somewhere. He went back to the depot. They actually gave him the opportunity to go into training, which was insane because the whole
Get the
reason he ran away
get the
from the
hell out of here. Please don't tell
yeah,
me this dude became a Marine.
no, he didn't.
Oh, okay.
But the whole reason he ended up running away from the depot in the first place was because he knew that he would pop on the P test because he had smoked weed in the depth, and like a week or two before he shipped out, goes down there, like leaves the hotel, and they gave him like it was like a day or 2 or 3 days or something like that to actually like make his decision. Okay, am I gonna stay here and like go through training, or am I not going to? And he
Yeah.
ended up like just not doing it,
Bro,
which
that's crazy. That's like that's the worst one I've heard. Like, because I had
it's
other
yeah,
times, like I heard, excuse me, my allergies are disgusting in Jersey. So one of the things that I had happen was I remember I was a staff in CIC when this happened. This dude, they dropped him at the hotel the night before. So he shipped, right? So he went to MEPS and there was like a storm, right? So they were at MEPS. It was Monday. They were supposed to ship, and there was a storm, so they couldn't ship. So they brought them all back to the hotel, and they were like, "Hey, you're gonna ship tomorrow, right? On Tuesday." So that night, this dude goes to the front desk, calls his mother. His mother comes, picks him up, and just takes him home. And dude's in UA, not at the airplane. Next day.
oh,
Then I had another time where it wasn't my Marine, it was somebody else in the RS, but they had someone Sunday night. They dropped them off at the hotel. The recruiter walked, like literally, apparently, from what I understand, is the recruiter walked in, dropped the kid off, got back in his car. The parents' van pulled up. Kid got in the car and left. And it was like, bro, what do you mean?
man,
Like, bro, once you live through shit like that, bro, like bro, oh my god, bro, like or like close calls where like MEPS is at 5:30, you got to be there at 5:30, and all of a sudden, like traffic hits, it's like 5:25, and you can't, and it's mission day, like, bro, once you start living through that, anything else is, hey man, we
yeah,
have time, like,
yeah. It was There's one time I think the most stressed I've been with a kid. He wasn't even a shipper; he's a processor, and
Yeah.
he was supposed to get an ID ETP because he had a school ID, and
Yeah.
like I was not tracking. Like for a while, like our MEPS was pretty chill. Like you had a school ID as long as you look like the person on your ID,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
you're good.
Us too.
And
And then all of a sudden they were like, no. And it was like,
yeah,
what are you? You've been doing this for 2 years, and now all of a sudden the school ID isn't enough, and they're fake. Like,
exactly. And like the guy, then the captain down there was like, I'm not signing any ETPs until the day of. Like we're not doing any day of ETPs. They have to be 48 hours prior. And it's like, are you freaking serious, dude?
yeah,
But you know, he uh he goes in and I pick him up because our MEPS from here, our MEPS is in Sacramento, so it's about a 2.5 hour drive, give or take one way. And so I picked this kid up at he luckily he had already taken the ASVAB, but I picked this kid up at like 2 a.m. and drive him to MEPS, and the plan was to get him there at the same time as the bus, so he could like get in line with like all the kids that come from the hotel and
yeah,
try to like sneak under the radar with no ID ETP. And I'm sitting there in my gov like watching all this happen, like whoa, like is it gonna work? It did. It was awesome. But
nice.
like that was I was pretty stressed because that was like either this kid like sneaks into MEPS or we're not making mission this month. And we ended up making it though. So
Bro, and
it
that's the
happened.
worst thing, man. Like I remember one time, bro. So my boy Morales, like me and my gunny used to fuck with this dude. So, and he's like, my boy Morales gets really emo. Like he's really emo. Like he'll get like real,
Okay.
like one thing go wrong, bro. The rest of the day he'll be like everything. The whole day's shot. So it was mission day, and we were gonna miss by 2, and he had 2 kids on deck. So I call him. I'm the A gunner. I call him and I start flipping out on him. Like his kids already passed. His kids just made it on deck. They're literally at the oath, but he doesn't know this. So I
Okay.
call him and I start chewing his ass out. I'm like, you mother. I start flipping out on him. He's like, what? 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 I'm like, bro, are you effing kidding me? He's like, what? I'm like, first of all, your boy has no underwear on. He went to Met. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, what? He's like, yo, yesterday when he left the office, I made sure that dude had underwear. I'm like, bro, he went in there with no underwear on, so he couldn't fizz. And then I'm like, your other kid shit his pants, and Gunny just called. He's flipping out on me. Now the staff NCO, and I'm like, and now I call, and then I'm like, all right, bro. Yeah, yo, we're done. I'm like, bro, how the hell you let this happen? I'm like, I briefed him, you briefed him. I'm like, did you not call him last night? He's like, oh shit. He's like, I didn't call him last night, bro. I'm like, did you call him this morning? He's like, no, my alarm didn't go off. I didn't speak to him this morning. I'm like, bro, so that's why Gunny got mad at me when he asked the Marine who was the last person you talked to, and he didn't say my recruiter this morning. And he was like, oh shit. So he's like bugging out. So I'm like, all right. So I hang up on him. So I'm standing right next to my gunny. My gunny calls him. My gunny calls him. You motherfucker! I start banging on him, and then all of a sudden, he's like, "Get to the office right now!" So he hangs up the phone. My boy pulls up to the office, and we had the other recruiter go get his kids. So the kids are sitting on the couch with their bully t-shirts. So my boy walks in the office, and Gunny's like, "Get the hell in the office right now!" So he comes walking in, and these 2 kids are sitting there with their police shirts on. And they're like, "Hey, Sergeant Morales," and he's like, "Yo, y'all a motherfucker." Yo, he literally was in tears. Like, bro, we play. Yo, it was hilarious, bro. Like, but we used to get him all the time, all the time. We Once we would find out the kid contracted, we would call him and be like, "Oh, bro, I don't know, man." Like, but yeah, man, it was some good
Yeah.
times. Yo, tell me one good story before you go.
Well, okay. What do you want to hear the story about?
Anything.
All right.
Um, do you have a funny pool PT story?
No, actually, now that I think about it, like I don't really have any funny like cool PTs. Some of them are kind of like sad or like motivational, but
Oh, all
not
right. Do you have
funny
any
though.
funny MEP stories? Like the funniest thing that happened to a kid at MEPS or on the way to MEPS or like when you were briefing a kid? Like, you got any funny stories about MEPS, about applicants?
So yeah. So there's one. It's there's kind of sorted two, right? So there's one kid who was fairly recently. He went down to MEPS and he was like a hard Bravo, which whatever, as long as you make it, make it. He got a 32 on the ASVAB and he got no line scores, like he couldn't qualify for anything. So he passed but also failed,
Yeah,
right?
that was
And we're
me.
like, okay, well, we'll send this guy anyway. Like, we'll, get him down there, get him Q&E at least, and he can like study, retake the ASVAB, right? We're like motivated. We're motivate him, like tell him everything he's got to do, right, and like make sure that he's
Yeah,
he's tracking. The dude over like I don't even know, like overestimated what he needed to do for when we gave him the MEPS brief, right? Told him like, hey, you're gonna drink a ton of water the night before, to drink a ton of water the morning of, and then like just hold it as long as you can until you go to your analysis because we don't need you like anybody not being able to pee right in the morning.
that's the worst ever, bro. When you get told the kid can't contract because he couldn't pee, like you're
Yeah,
mad. Like when you find out the kid's cute and he's good, and you're like, well, why hasn't he contracted? And they're like, because he can't pee, and you're like, what? Like
like
what? And
why?
then the kid gets to the office, and I'm blasting him. Like, bro, you couldn't pee. Like I told you, they were gonna stare at you. I told you that they were gonna check you, and now you can't pee. Like we missed mission because you couldn't pee. Like, oh! All right, so keep going.
So this he gets down there, right? He's like 100% knows what he's got to do, right? And he ends up peeing his pants on deck. And so we get a call, right? Talk to the MEPS liaisons, talk to the kid,
Peed
like,
his pants.
you know, just don't be dumb, like fix yourself. Like if you got to go to the bathroom, like go to the freaking bathroom, dude. Like you're a grown adult. If you can't hold it, you can't hold it. What does he do? Turns around a couple hours later, pees his pants again. A second time, same day on deck. MEPS had to give him two sets of clothes to take to wear because he peed his pants twice. And
Bro.
so, luckily enough, like we were already we weren't hadn't made mission yet, but we were not sitting too bad. Like we had some other players, so like it wasn't like he was a make it or break it kind of guy. But yeah, like then fast forward to taking the P test, can't pee because there's no more pee
Bro.
because he peed his pants twice.
Bro, and that's the worst part is that like it's like you overbrief, right? Because it's like now you learn, okay, now when I brief kids, hey, listen, drink enough water, but don't pee your pants. Like,
Yeah,
like I need you to be a happy medium, bro. Like, and it's like,
like
but Stassard, you told me. It's like, no, bro. Like, I don't need you to pee yourself, dog. Like, and if you have to go, go. That's why I would tell people just, hey, make sure that throughout the day you're just sipping water, like constantly sip water. They have water bottles. They have a water fountain. Just constantly sip water so that when it comes time to go to the bathroom, you can go to the bathroom. Because there are, bro, I was pee shy when I went to MEPS. Like I know that. Like I literally had to try like 3 or 4 times. Like when I first joined, even bro, when I was in boot camp, I was pee shy, like to the point where like I could not pee. I could not pee when I was in like those like the horse stalls or whatever the hell they're called, like in boot
yeah,
camp, like how they have those
hmm
huge urinals. Like I
yeah,
couldn't pee with other men standing next to me. I couldn't do it. So I literally would have to like I just couldn't go. So I would not pee all day until like that night. And then I'd be like, oh like yeah. So like I was that guy, but like I never pissed myself, no. But hey
so now
man,
it's part of the MEPS brief. Like, don't piss your pants.
yeah, like that's part of the brief. Do not piss your pants. But hey, man, thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate you taking your time. It's definitely, especially on a weekend, taken away from your family. Before we go, is there any last words, any advice that you would give to Tommy 2.5 years ago? Any advice you would give to anybody who's coming on here now?
Yeah,
or
I'd
currently
say
on the
that
duty who just needs some help?
for sure. I mean, I'd say that one, like, I'm not a great recruiter for real. Like, I'm not good at it. I'm not like the best freaking guy that there ever was. So you can kind of take the advice for what it's worth. And but my opinion, right, and what I would say, especially to myself, is it serious? Yes, absolutely. Like everything is serious. It's a mission. Like you have a mission to do. You need to accomplish it. However, comma, pause for effect. You do have to like live your life. You can't take everything super seriously all the time because it's not going to pan out for you. It's going to make you so stressed. It's going to make you so tight that you just can't do anything. Right? You get home, you snap at your kids and your spouse because like you're just freaking stressed. You get to work and like you're snapping at kids that don't want to come into the office because you're freaking stressed out. And you're like, well, screw you, man. You probably wouldn't even be able to freaking make it anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then boom, now you burned a bridge, and that kid could have joined like maybe a few months down the line, but now whenever you call them, they're like, oh yeah, you're the guy that was an asshole, like fuck you, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and those weird kids. The other thing is like the weird kids. You don't want to be enlisting only weird kids, but don't just like keep away from them because some of the weird kids that we brought in, especially as like four tenors, ended up going and like doing really good and become really great Marines. Another like a mini little example, funny story too is like there was the ship brief that we were given, and this one's really short. It was a ship brief we were given, and at the end of it, it was like, okay, do any of you guys have anything, got done with the moment of truth stuff, anything that any of you guys have that you want to tell us like right now before you go? So like if we need to do something, we need to handle something, we can handle it now. And it's not a surprise later, right?
Yeah.
And one kid, like raises his hand. He's like, I have something, sir. And like, what's up, man? He's like, is it so I'm a virgin. Is that okay? And we were like, what? Like, yeah, like what? Why does it matter? Like,
Yeah.
but he seriously had in his head is like, well, all these Marines like they get tail like all the time or whatever his recruiter, and his dad was a recruiter, so whatever his dad told him to. And he's like, well, I've never had sex before, so does that mean that I can't be a Marine? It's like, no, dude, like what? Just go
Yeah.
to boot camp, like get out of
Yeah.
here.
Like what are we talking
But
about?
don't let the let the weird kids join, because a lot of times those weird kids are going to be those high alphas, and the same time like they're not always going to be weird. Like look back at on you when you were in like high school or middle school,
That's a
like
big,
you're
yeah,
probably weird.
man. Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like, bro, who's to say who's weird? Like we're all weird to
Yeah,
somebody else, right? And then on top of that, it's also just the fact of like it's who are we? It's a hard thing for me. Like when I was on the duty, and I'll end with this, is like in my head, I was always like, hey, I'm the gatekeeper because I want to put quality people in the Marine Corps. But at the same time, who am I to say this person can't be a Marine? Like if this
yeah,
person truly wants to be a Marine and they really do, who am I to say they can't? And that's why it's a happy medium, right? We have to make sure we're putting quality people in the Marine Corps, but at the same time, we also have to make sure that we're not allowing our bias or our own intentions be a negative towards the Marine Corps. And that's the thing too, is that like that'll also guard us when we're putting people in the Marine Corps we know shouldn't be in the Marine Corps. Like there's people that you put in the Marine Corps that and you're like, or like I have a buddy of mine, like there's a Marine I put in the Marine Corps. I won't say his name. He's still in the Marine Corps. And my gunny hits me up the other day. He's like, yo, he didn't get kicked out for drugs yet? And I'm just like,
damn,
bro, so why did you ever put this kid in the Marine Corps if that was your opinion of him? Like,
yeah,
bro, what are we doing? And that's the thing, is that we get so caught up on mission, KGs, alphas. We get so caught up on the wrong things that we put the wrong people in that should have never been in. And that's a whole nother episode. We'll do it part two. But hey, man, I appreciate you, man. Go have time with your family, bro. I really thank you so much. Thank you to your wife for giving me an hour and a half of your time. Let her know I said thank you. Thank you to your children. Thank you to you. And I just hope everything works out for you, man. Keep grinding, keep pushing, and have a good rest of the night, man.
Absolutely, you as well. Thank you for having me and being so patient. Like my,
No, I get it, bro.
yeah, it's been
No,
nuts,
I
but
definitely understand, bro. And this is the time that you need to be with your family and stuff. So I get it, bro. I miss it. It's a weird thing for me. I miss the duty, but I don't miss being away from my family. Like now, like I'm always with them. So now even like me being on the podcast for an hour and a half, like that's just an hour and a half I'm away from them. But compared to what it used to be, it's totally different now. But now
yeah,
I'm also very understanding. Like when people tell me, like, hey, man, I can't make it because I have a MEPS run that I didn't know about. I'm like, oh, bro, I get it. It's not a big deal. Like, so now I'm totally different. But hey, man, I appreciate it. I hope you have a good rest of the night and adios.
I'm good.